Hi, I'm Jim Young. I'm a New Zealand mountain guide, ski guide and assistant climbing guide. I also work here in Aoraki Mount Cook for the Department of Conservation Alpine Rescue Team, and I'm an avalanche educator and forecaster. I wanted to share some of my knowledge with you guys in a 3-part series. I hope you guys enjoy and I hope you learn something. Cool, so welcome to episode 2 of Trip Planning. We're going to look at where to go and how to decide that. So we're going to be looking at maps of terrain, trying to figure out some objectives for our trip. We want to then look at the weather, past, present and future, and then how that relates into the avalanche forecast to find out where is safe and maybe not so safe. And that also leads into good ski options, where we might find some powder, where we might find some corn. And then we're going to look at what equipment to bring based on the trip that we're doing and where we're going. And we're going to look at emergency planning and how to cover that for where we're going, and also look at the group and matching the group to the trip and the trip to the group. And when we're trying to think about where to go, we need to think about, what are our objectives of the trip? Are we looking to bag peaks? We're looking to ski some power laps? What's the ability of our group? How long are we going for? Are we leaving from a ski area, or are we taking a helicopter? Are we walking all the way into the mountains? Another part of the where is obviously the weather, because in New Zealand we've got this lovely nor'west effect where, right up on the divide might be terrible. And if we go 1 or 2 mountain ranges back, we might be finding nice blue skies and good powder. We also want to think about the beta element. It's like, how much intel can we get on this spot? Are we looking just to chop half a day and have a bit of fun, or are we going to go for a multi-day vision quest? That also ties into, maps, and lots of other planning tools. So we've got the good old-fashioned laminated paper maps here, works a treat. But then, of course, technology these days is heaps of resource available on our laptops. We can talk to helicopter pilots. That's a really good one. They got a good eye for where's filled in and where's not. We can talk to our local guiding companies. Online forums, Facebook's obviously got a lot of really great ski touring groups on it, where you can log on and people will post photos and trip reports and things like that. Chatting to, people that have good historical knowledge of the terrain. Maybe even your friendly shop staff at somewhere like Small Planet in Queenstown, who could probably steer you right depending on what you're trying to find out. A lot of resource to pull from when we're thinking about the where. And, for me, the where also ties into a lot of the what, in terms of what equipment, and the who. Is this the right group for the trip? Then it also ties into the avalanche forecast, and the weather forecast is a big influencer onto the where that we want to go for our trip. So we're going to talk our way through a classic Aoraki Mount Cook ski traverse from Barron Saddle Hut to Aoraki Mount Cook Village. So with the map here, we're really looking at kind of the three A's. We're looking at aspect, we're looking at altitude, and we're looking at angle. Those are the 3 critical things. When we're looking at planning our trips around here at Barron Saddle, so, we want to think about the avalanche hazard and, looking at places like Mount Scissors here, more committing, steeper terrain, and potentially lee to the prevailing southwest winds. Going into places like the Welchman Glacier, we've got concerns of going into reasonably heavily crevassed terrain, so then our crevasse hazard creeps up a little bit in terms of what we're trying to manage. Then we're looking at, traveling through these little north-facing pinches, so we're worrying about, timing of the day and making sure that we're planning the timings around the heat of the day. And then we're looking at skiing, steep north-facing terrain later on in the day, and just trying to make sure that times in with the weather that we've got forecasted. And if we had a big spike in freezing level, we might want to travel through this terrain more quickly. And then as we're coming through here to the end of the day, on this lower altitude terrain below Mueller Hut into Sealy Tarns, depending on the time of year, we could be getting concerned about that sort of low altitude east facing terrain getting hot during the morning and then refreezing, leaving a horrible crust, which could be quite challenging with heavy packs and tired legs, as we ski down at the end of the trip. All these little clues when we look at a map will lead us into understanding, good ski quality and interpreting the avalanche hazard better. So we've got to kind of manage all these elements, along the way and plan for them to have a successful trip. A really important thing with the weather is to look at a detailed analysis of what's happened in the past. Past is really important because that tells us a lot about the avalanche hazard and ski and snow quality. We want to look at the present, to understand what's happening right now as we're planning for a trip, and we want to look at the future and as best we can, for the length of time we're in the hills. Because not only does this tie into our avalanche forecasting, it also ties into equipment choice, and it ties into run selection, all these factors in our day. A critical part of this is not looking at just one place for information. My personal method for this is I like to look at 3 different models from 3 independent weather sources and compare the 3 together, and I'm looking for a trend. I want to see 2 out of those 3 forecasts be similar to each other, and that's an easy way for me to then decide, okay, cool, the weather is most likely going to be what those 2 are suggesting. So we're now going to look at the weather, and as I mentioned earlier, I like to look at 3 different models, compare them, and see which 2 or 3 tell us the same story as the best way to moderate what people think is going to happen out there. So this is metview.com, every New Zealand skier's favourite website, run by the Wellington University, I believe. And it's really good because it's pulling a series of images every 6 hours and posting them with precip and wind and air pressure isobars mapped on there. So this is a really good for getting a sort of synoptic view of the weather patterns. So if we look at what's on the screen here, we can see that there's a southerly to southwesterly airstream. Reasonably tight isobars at the moment, so that's indicating there will still be a reasonable amount of air moving up high, and very slowly this ridge of high pressure is making its way onto the country through into Sunday and into Monday. And then we have a small flick of weather coming through Monday afternoon, and that high pressure then ridges back on and remains dominant for a couple of days. So looking at this map here, it's telling me that we've got cold air, little bit of wind possibly, but mostly easing back into a nice big fat high pressure. This one here, windy.com, a lot more interactive. You can have a whole lot of different layers here. We're looking right now at the wind layer. We can put on a satellite image of the weather as well, which is really cool for seeing what's happening right now with cloud cover and incoming weather systems. The other really neat thing about Windy is that it's fully interactive, so you can zoom it out and you get a really big appreciation of the bigger picture of what's happening between New Zealand and Australia. Predominantly a lot of our weather comes from west to east, so in this case we'll chuck it on the rain and thunder model, and we're going to play it through, which is really neat too, in real time, and we'll see how this high pressure here, this ridge is affecting New Zealand for the next few days, and this is going to hopefully give us a really nice window of weather in the mountains. There's a small little front coming through, getting squeezed on sort of Monday morning, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern for us into Tuesday, because this high pressure is really dominant. My third one, the nice, easy deal to deal with, metservice.com. For Ariki Mount Cook National Park here. The nice thing about this particular weather forecast is it's written by a professional meteorologist, and it also it's a written text, so it's a good interpretation of the weather for the park. So if we click on Mueller Hut here, and we can scroll down, and we're going to get all of the weather forecasts for the different areas. So for Mueller Hut, we can see here that we're getting Sunday. It's saying cold, no snow here is being registered, no rain's being registered, cold, 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 and clear for the next few days. Nice thing about the Met Service forecast, you can click through the days here, so we can see today, 11th of July, fine. Light winds, wind at 2,000 southerly 40 and 3,000 southerly 50, and the key thing here, the trend, it's becoming light, so it's easing back, and a low freezing level. Clicking through to Monday, we can see light winds at 1 and 2,000 meters, and at 3,000 meters, just a southwesterly at 30 k's. So pretty low key winds really. Low freezing level at 1,200 meters. And into Tuesday, fine once again, and you can see here northwesterlies developing at low elevations, and at 2 and 3,000 meters, we've got this southerly 30 and 40 kilometers, but not a lot of concern there, and a low freezing level at 1,000 meters. This is what I use. I use these 3 different tools. They all have different pros and cons. It's just important to understand them all. There's many more weather websites out there. Just use 2 or 3 of your favorite ones, learn them, figure out how they behave in different storm patterns, and make your own interpretation of the forecast and put these bits of the puzzle together.